Okay, good morning everyone, especially to the BS Criminology second year, and welcome to our subject which is the human rights education. So perhaps many of you are not familiar about this course since this course is a new course from Commission on Higher Education. So I hope that all of you will be able to listen or to watch this video, since after this I will going to give you a quiz for the prelim. So the first question is, what is the basis of this new course, Human Rights Education? So the basis of this new course was no other than the CHED Memorandum Order number 5 series of 2018. So that's the basis of this new course, the Human Rights Education. So under the section 8 of this order, same order, meron tayong tinatawag na curriculum description o Bachelor of Science in Criminology. It says herewith that this course has a total of 177 units for number 1, general education. So ano pong mga subjects when it comes to general education? So these are the minor subjects na kailangan nyong matapos. Example dito is yung mathematics, Filipino, English, so on and so forth. Okay, let's talk naman about the professional courses or professional educations under the new curriculum of BS Criminology. So actually sa professional education, there is two category of subject or course natin. First is yung major subject, second is yung core subjects. So, ito yung mga subjects under the professional education. First, we do have 4 LEA or Law Enforcement Administration. Second is 6 Forensics. Before that is called as Criminalistics, but under this new curriculum, the name was changed from Criminalistics to Forensics. Actually, the same lang din naman sila. Example nito is yung Forensic Ballistic, Forensic Chemistry, Forensic Toxicology, etc. Okay, next is 9 CDI or Criminal Detection and Investigation subjects. Example is yung Drug Education and Vice Control, or Fundamental of Criminal Investigation. Meron din tayong Special Crime Investigation or yung Comparative Police System is part of the CDI. Okay? We also have 8 Criminal Sociology subjects. Kasama nito yung Introduction to Criminology. Next, we have 2 Correctional Administration. Yung INSTI at saka non-NST. Next is 2 practicum. Ano yung practicum? That is the OJT. So that was the major course or subjects that comprise of professional education. So next naman is, so the question here is, saan dito yung subject natin, which is the human rights education. So let's take a view first before we're going to answer the question. The core subjects under professional education. So, sa core subject, may tinatawag tayong CGL1 or Introduction to Philippine Criminal Justice System. Next is CGL2 or Human Rights Education. So, ito po yung subject natin. Yung subject natin is belong to the core subjects or courses under professional education. Okay, next we have CGL3 or Criminal Law Book 1, CGL4 Criminal Law Book 2, CGL5 that is Criminal Evidence, CGL6 that is Criminal Procedure and Court Testimony. So these are all subjects comprised of the core courses under the professional education. So, balikan ko, we have units of total of 177 for general education, professional education, which comprise of major and core subjects. Okay, the third one is the practicum or the on-the-job training. So, ito yung mga bagay na kailangan yung matapos or malikom during sa inyong sa study in criminology before kayo makaproceed in taking the board examination. Okay, now let's proceed to the module proper of HRE or the human rights discussion. First is we have to talk about the 1987 Philippine Constitution, Article 3 or the Bill of Rights. Okay. So, actually, may revision po ang modules natin but hindi ko muna ipapublish with the LMS since meron naman to already. Same lang naman din. Okay? So, yung course description, sinasabi dito is the human rights education teaches both about the human rights and for the human rights. Its goal is to help the students understand human rights, value human rights, and take responsibility for respecting, defending, and promoting human rights. An important outcome of the human rights education is empowerment and process through which the people and communities increase their control of their own lives and the decisions that affect them. The ultimate goal of human rights education is people working together to bring about human rights, justice, and dignity of all. So, what the point of human rights education is we have to respect the rights of other. So, you cannot post into social media without thinking the rights of the other person. Of course, we have our freedom of expression, we have our freedom of press, and anything freedom, meron po tayo niyan. But a mere fact is hindi po tayo nakaka-exercise ng human rights natin without thinking about the human rights of other person. Hindi naman pwede na mag-post ka, sabihin mo, i-discriminate mo, or i-dishonor mo yung tao into social media. Actually, may rights ka naman mag-post. Pero how about the rights of other person na tinatapakan mo na? So that's the human rights will going to play into in the community or in the society. So the 1987 Philippine Constitution, Article 3, Bill of Rights. So concept of Bill of Rights. So ano yung Bill of Rights? This is otherwise known as the Charter of Liberty. Pag sinabi nating charter, parang it is a written document na all of the basic rights or basic liberties na meron tayo is doon lahat nakasaad. If you remember, meron dyan sa Bill of Rights yung right to education of a child. Di ba? So this is a Bill of Rights or the Charter of Liberty na it cannot be changed because this is a basic under the Constitution. Because when we're going to talk about the Constitution, that is inalienable at hindi pwedeng i-modified kahit any legal actions pa dyan because that is already fixed and absolute. No one can change the Philippine Constitution or the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So you must be familiar with that as a law enforcer, as a future law enforcer because sometimes as a law enforcement member or a law enforcer, we tend to use our authority and our power without knowing the basic human rights of other person, which is very essential for us. Okay? So, continue tayo. So, the Bill of Rights, otherwise known as the Charter of Liberty, may be defined as a declaration and enumeration of a person's basic rights and privileges. Now, before we're going to continue our discussion, what is a right and what is a privilege? Okay? So sana is face to para makapagbigay naman kayo ng inyong opinion, but since hindi, so ilagay na natin sa quiz or sa oral ninyo. Okay? Before that, meron akong message kagabi sa inyo na after this discussion is magbibigay ako ng quiz para mai-record naman tayo sa class record. Actually, siguro isang quiz lang. Then, after that, watch kayo ng video. This video na ginawa ko ngayon. Then, you continue reading of your modules. Actually, dito sa modules lang, na-comprise lahat yung oral recitation ko and other activities. So, next naman tayo sa midterm, baka gagawa naman ako ng module that is a short, medyo shorter lang, para hindi masyadong hassle sa part ninyo. Then for the activity naman, is kailangan yung tapusin lahat ng activity. So by next week is mapasa na yung activity. So disregard niyo yung activity number 3 and 4. You only answer activity number 1, 2, and 5. Okay? So dito na ako magbigay ng instruction para ma-situate ko na you watch the video. So hindi na ako magbibigay ng instruction later on sa GC. Okay? So what is the distinction between rights and a privilege? Pag sinabi nating rights, that is something that cannot be withdrawn, or even legal concerns such as freedom of speech, religion, and raising a family. So kahit meron diyang masasabi na kahit hindi naman pwede na magbigay ng legal action para tanggalin yung freedom of speech natin, because we have our freedom of speech. The time that we born here in our world, our freedom was already established. That is freedom from our God. So parang yung Bill of Rights kasi parang common laws yan. Yung mga bagay na hindi na masyadong inuugnay sa state. Kasi kung tao ka, kailangang meron kang rights na yan. Raising a family, that is your basic rights. While privilege is something given but it cannot be taken away, or something that can be given away. So ibig sabihin, hindi pwedeng alisin sa'yo. I mean, yung privilege is something given. Parang ibinibigay lang sa'yo. Pero pwede namang kunin later on. So what's that? What kind of rights is that? I mean, privilege. So what are the things that comes into privilege? Okay, let's discuss later on. So, sabi dito, yung privilege is considered to be a special advantage only, or opportunity that is available only to a certain person. So, unlike the rights, yung rights kasi minsan that is given to all person. Unlike the privilege, that is only given to a certain number of person. So may mga bagay na ibinibigay which is a privilege na hindi kagaya ng rights na common sa lahat at hindi pwedeng alisin sa iyo, because that is your absolute right, unlike the privilege, because privilege is can be given but it can taken away later on. Okay? Next is para mas malaman natin yung rights at saka privilege. Yung right is something that every person is born with and inalienable. So, that is a right. Pagkapanganak mo pa lang, may rights ka na. at hindi pwedeng kunin sa'yo. Which means that it cannot be given, taken away, or denied by everyone. So so dapat malaman natin yung mga rights natin kasi na nakalagay sa Bill of Rights. Kasi hindi yan pwedeng tanggalin sa'yo, hindi pwedeng hiramin, at hindi pwedeng i-denied ng nakakarami. Example, rights mo yan, tapos rights mong tumawa, tapos sabihin na, oy, wag kang tumawa dyan, is rights mo namang tumawa. Okay? Another distinction between a right or a privilege is that a right does not need to earn or work for. So, ibig sabihin, yung right is hindi mo kailangang, what we call this one, hindi mo kailangang pagsikapan or pagtrabahuan para makuha mo. So, for example, yung driver's license natin. A driver license is a privilege. Why? Because you have to work for it. At hindi lahat ng driver's license ay pwedeng mabigay sa sino-sino. Because we have our restrictions before we're going to get or to acquire a new license. Example, kailangan mo munang dumaan sa isang test. Or example naman, kung ikaw ay blind or you are unable to drive. So hindi siya right kasi dapat yung right kasi lahat ng tao pwedeng ma-enjoy yung rights na yan. Unlike yung driver's license, you have to work for it. At kahit pinagtrabahuan mo na yan, hindi din basta-basta maibibigay sa'yo kung ikaw ay hindi fit or hindi ka qualified to be given a license. So at this time around, we will be talking about the classification or the category of rights. So first is we do have the natural rights. So talking about the natural rights, these are those rights possessed by every citizen without being granted by the state, for they are given to man by God as human being, created to His image, that they may live a happy life. So all of the rights that we possess right now without the intervention of the state, the government, or of the certain laws, that is so-called or categorized as a natural rights. So what are those rights? Examples. So first is the right to live or the right to liberty. That is a natural rights. The time for our inception here in our place, we have already the right to live or the right to have a freedom. So what else? The right to possess anything which has something value, or the right for ownership, the right of having a car, the right of having a family, the right of having a independent opinion or belief. That is under the natural rights that God given to every human being. Next is the constitutional rights. They are those rights which are given or conferred and protected by the Constitution. Since they are part of the fundamental law, they cannot be modified or changed or taken away by the lawmaking body. So the 1987 Philippine Constitution, that is absolute. So if you're familiar with the Bill of Rights, that rights enumerated or listed therein, that is part or under the constitutional rights. So example of which was the right to religion, the right for expression, the right of press, so on and so forth. So what are the classification of the constitutional rights? So first, we have the political rights. They are such rights of the citizens which give them the power to participate directly or indirectly in the establishment or administration of the government. So individuals has the rights or ability to be part or to participate in any forms or aspects of political life of the society. So without fear or discrimination or intimidation on their part. So example of which was to run or to be elected as a government officials, or to run as a president, a senator, or other forms of positions in the government. So next to which is the civil rights. They are those rights which the law will enforce at the instance of private individuals for the purpose of securing to them the enjoyment of their means of happiness. So what are those rights enlisted or enumerated in the civil rights? So all of the rights when it comes to civil matters, that was part of the civil rights, which is under the classification of the constitutional rights. So example of which was to be given services coming from the government, or to vote, or to have a social activities, or to be part of it, or the right to have a public education, or the right to have a good asylum. If you are ill or you are sick, then you have the right to have a good facility or confinement. That is part of your civil rights. Or the right to secure PSA birth certificate upon the inception or upon the birthing of a child, and for the when you are securing a birth certificate, that is your part or your rights enumerated in civil rights as a person, as a human being. Next to that is the social and economic rights. They refers to those rights which are intended to ensure the well-being and economic security of the individual. So all of the rights under the social and economic rights was your financial or finances stability. So you have the right to work, you have the right to put a business, or you have the right to secure life insurance, or anything which something economic involvement or concerns. You have the right to participate directly or indirectly. Still, that is your right enumerated in social and economic rights under the classification of constitutional rights. Okay? Next to that was the rights of the accused. They are the civil rights intended for the protection of a person accused of any crime. So what was that rights under the Constitution? So the right of the accused is under the section 14 of the Constitution. No person shall be held to answer for a criminal offense without the due process of law. So under which of the rights of the accused is, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall be presumed innocent until the contrary is proved. So this is very important when it comes to the rights of the accused, because no one is given a final judgment or conviction or even acquittal without the process of law, or the accused must be innocent until he is proved beyond reasonable doubt. So next is, he or she shall enjoy the right to be heard by himself and a counsel. So if you remember, when you are involved in a case, or you are being accused, the government will provide a counsel for you if you cannot provide for yourself, in the right to be heard by themselves. Next is to be informed of the nature and the cause of the accusation against him. This is still in the rights of the accused. We are talking about the rights of the accused. So the right to be informed of the nature and the cause of the accusation against him. Next is to have a speedy impartial, and a public trial. So I don't know if these rights have been exercised or enjoyed by many, because so far, since there were a lot of cases being filed in the court, I don't know that still there is a speedy or impartial or a public trial, because of the burden that the court was handling. Next is to meet the witnesses face to face. So the accused was still have the right to have a personal witness, or to meet his or her witnesses face to face. Next is to have a compulsory process to secure the attendance of witnesses and the production of evidence in his behalf. Okay, so that was some of the rights of the accused. Next is the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. So talking about the Declaration of Human Rights, that is under or made by the United Nations, and that was drafted and made by the representative coming from different sites or region of the globe. So with a legal and cultural background of different countries. So the purpose of which is to be protected as universally, especially our human rights. So we have our one standard and principles. I mean uniform standards and principles when it comes to human rights. And this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights made by the United Nations. So what are those? Number one, we are all born free and equal. So upon inception of this place, we have the absolute rights to be free and to be equal. Next is everyone has the rights despite differences. So whatever social status, distinction, race, gender, beliefs, or anything, culture or traditions, everyone has the right, same or equal rights or protection. Next is all have the right to live and live in safety. That is very essential. And we enjoy this kind of right kahit saan po tayo mapunta because of these universal rights. Next is no one may enslave you. So that is very clear that no one has the right to make you a slave or enslave you. Next is no one may torture you. So mind you, ladies and gentlemen, this is also important rights that we have, because no one can hurt or torture us no matter what. You have the rights no matter where you are traveling. So kahit saan ka pumunta, kahit saan ka mag-travel, you still have the rights kahit saan pang location kung saan ka nagta-travel. Next is all are equal before the law. So if you remember, no one is above the law. So this is very clear. 8 human rights are protected by law. So this is also very important, because we cannot exercise or function well or enjoy our rights without the protection of law, because the government or the law, they are the one who will going to implement or put ourselves or let us exercise and function well for our individual rights. So next is no one should be unfairly detained. And that is very clear and not new for us, because we cannot detain a person without the probable cause, or that person may not committed a crime. Okay? Next is all have a right to a fair trial. So when you are accused or you are involved with a case, so you have the right to a fair trial. Hindi pwedeng sabihin natin yung bill of attainder. So, pag sinabing bill of attainder, you are giving a final judgment or convicting a person without the due process of law or without a public trial. So next is all accused are innocent until proven guilty. So that is very absolute and cannot be modified. Okay? Next is all have a right to privacy. Next, all have the right to move freely. Next is all may enjoy asylum from persecution. So it means that if you have something illness or if you are sick or if you are convicted, then you have the right to enjoy a good facility or confinement. I don't know if we enjoy that kind of right here in the Philippines. Next is all have a right to nationality. So that is your right to have a nationality where you reside in. Okay? Next is all may marry and establish a family. So that is your right to marry and establish a family. All may own property. Next is all may think freely, including religion. That is part of the right to religion. Next is all may freely express opinions. Next, all may assemble peacefully. Next, all may participate in governing. Next, all have rights to dignity and social protections. Next is all have free choices of employment. That is very clear. So kung gusto mong magtrabaho in your own choice, then you have your freedom. Okay? All have rights to rest and leisure. Next is all have the right to an adequate standard of living. Next, all have a right to education. All have rights to intellectual property. Next is all have the right to a world that enables and protect rights. Next is all rights have responsibilities and can only be limited when infringing on others' rights. Next is no one can take away your human rights. So that was the rights enumerated or enlisted from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay? So next. So what is the concept of due process of law? So the concept of due process of law, it is a law that hears before it condemns, which proceeds upon inquiry and renders judgment only after trial. It is responsive to the supremacy of reason, obedience to the dictates of justice. So it's very clear already. When we talk about the due process of law, the law that hears before it condemns. So before a person is given a final conviction or acquittal, he or she has the right to be heard before a court. Okay, that was the concept of due process of law. We have here also the life, the terminologies from the human rights education. So life includes the rights of an individual to his body in its completeness and extends to the use of God-given faculties which make life enjoyable. Next is liberty. Includes the right to exist and the right to be free from arbitrary personal restraints or servitude. So that was enumerated a while ago from the liberty that you have the right not to be enslaved or being detained without a probable cause or a lawful cause. Okay? You have the right to freedom. Next, property. Property means anything that can come under the right of ownership and be subject for a contract. It represents more than the things that a person owns. It includes the right to secure and dispose of them. So that is very clear. You have the right to ownership and you have the right to acquired property or anything that has something value or even something do not have a value, but still you have the right to acquire or possess or own such property. So I think I will be ending my topic this day. So I hope that you will be able to listen and watch the video, and I hope you will going to cooperate, continue reading and exploring new things about the human rights education. So I also asked apology since I know that I wasn't able to deliver and discuss completely about this course, since this is also a new course in my behalf. So thank you and good day.